I remember in seminary training to be a priest, having a conversation with another seminarian from a diocese in the Midwest about how our weaknesses and our struggles shape the type of priest we become. We especially talked about how this man had struggled in the past with alcohol abuse, and how his experience of alcoholism, through the healing grace of God, went from being a weakness, a cross, a thorn in his side, to being a strength. Because as a priest, he would be able to identify with, speak with, and accompany people who struggled with the same weakness he struggled with. This notion that our weaknesses are not just eliminated by God, but transformed into our strengths is so central to discerning what our vocation is and to living the Christian life. Our readings today talk about leprosy, what today we know as Hansen's disease. In the ancient world, leprosy was the great equalizer. It could afflict people rich and poor, young and old, and it led to being ostracized, cast out of society. One of my favorite stories surrounding leprosy in the Old Testament concerns a man by the name of Naaman. Naaman was a famous general from outside of Israel in Syria who was showing the early stages of leprosy. He heard of a great prophet in Israel by the name of Elisha, and he goes to visit him to see if he can offer a cure. Naaman goes into the encounter haughty, prideful, expecting pomp and ceremony surrounding this famous person visiting a lowly prophet. But what happens in their encounter is that Elisha gives Naaman this simple instruction to bathe himself in the river Jordan. Naaman is offended at such a simple and humble cure for such an important man. And yet he humbles himself, and by the grace of God is cured of his ailment. He goes back on fire with love and devotion to the God of Israel, even insisting on bringing the very dirt from the ground back to Syria so that he can worship the God of Israel. The story of Naaman, together with the healings that occur throughout the Gospels by Jesus, remind us that we should never fear our weaknesses. In fact, it goes further than God simply wiping them away. In reality, the grace of God transforms our weakness into strength. Just like the seminarian who now would be able to minister to those struggling with alcohol abuse. Just like the great Syrian general who came away from his illness actually on fire and in love with God more than he ever had been before. So for us, God wishes to transform and use what we think of as weaknesses, turning them into strengths so that we may serve God and minister to his people.